On this Q&A, regrets in collecting. Is hydrogen peroxide whitening vintage toys a no-no? Paying too much for vintage toys? Plus more. Let's go. Welcome back to Vintage Q&A, where you ask questions and I research the heck out of it, trying to find answers for you. So if you want to join the next episode, leave your questions down there in the comments. And please subscribe so you can join the next Q&A. I do these every month. But first, I got a box. Nice. Not bad, not bad. To get yours, go down to the links in the description. So first question comes from A. Zachman. Have you ever regretted not getting a figure? 25 years ago, I was pondering getting Tig from and Size from, passed because they were from a dumb cartoon. Also passed on a mint card Droids Boba Fett for $50 because don't need another Boba. So angry at myself. So if I was to list all the times I regretted not getting a figure, we would be here for hours and hours. But yeah, there have been a handful of times where I walked away from a figure or a playset and regretting the hell out of it because I knew that the price was too good. But here's the thing. Sometimes these figures and playsets get so high in price that even the good deals are still way out of my price range at that moment in time. And then there's been months or years that go by where I have the capital to finally buy these at a great price, and the item's gone bye-bye, of course, because it's such a great deal. And look, life comes first. So let me be very, very clear about that. You should never be putting things in life before your hobby, especially if you have people depending on you. So that's why I have my collecting sheets, and so I can plan my budgets and save for what I need, but really it's all about planning. And I'll give two exact instances where I regretting walking away. One was for a yak face coin, and if you know how expensive that coin is, it's from 1985. And it was only issued with Kenner Power of the Force card backs. And since those weren't distributed in the US, those are more on the rare side, and the price reflects it. So in good condition, those can go for around $1,000. Someone was trying to sell me both the Anakin and Yak Face coins for a total of $750. That's $375 a coin, which is a great deal, a bargain for both. But I had to say no because at the time I needed to pay for other things that month, and I just bought a very expensive playset. So that was my budget for the month that was depleted, and I regretted that. Oh, did I regret that. So next is Dan Miller, and Dan asks, I would like to get yours and the community's opinion with respect to using hydrogen peroxide and UV lights to whiten figures that have yellowed. Is this a no-no in the eyes of collectors? And that's a really good question. So I don't whiten anything in my collection with hydrogen peroxide, but that's because I'm a bit of a collection purist, and some people might think that, you know, that's a snob, but really it's not. It's just what I like to do. And it's also because I'm a bit lazy, and that takes a lot of time. Here are the options that some collectors have done that I've heard. There's basically two camps. There's the one that I just mentioned, those that don't whiten because they're purists, and they want to keep the collection and collecting pure and free from enhancing figures or playsets, vehicles, etc. with today's techniques, and they don't really see chemical whitening as restoration and preservation. They consider that a no-no. When you buy these figures or other vintage items, you don't really know if you've bought it from people who have chemically enhanced the figure. You know, even when you send in the figures for grading, it's really hard for the grading companies to detect hydrogen peroxide whitening. At least that's what I've been told. And I've asked graders, and they can't test for that. And it was a conversation that I had with the folks over at CAS, and I had them on my channel if you want to check that video out. But on the other side of the fence, there are the people who don't care about being a purist, and they do whatever the hell they want to do with their collection, which is how it should be. And even if they sell figures, they think that they don't have to disclose that they whitened. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't want to whiten, but I don't care what people do with their collections, yet I don't want to buy figures that have been modified. But yeah, to answer your question, there is a population in the vintage Star Wars collecting community who see hydrogen peroxide whitening as a no-no. That is a really good question, Dan. So let me know down in the comments what you all think about that. and I'll read the results in a future Q&A episode. So Stuart Merrill asks, can you please tell how I can get a hanging figure case like the one behind you in your videos? That case is honestly my pride and joy, and it's one of the best things that I've ever gotten for my collection, and I love talking about it. It's from a company called Collector Displays, and the owner's name is Drew Tagg. Shout out to Drew. And I was the second person in the USA to get a case like that, and I was the first to get a creature case, and that's the one right there on the bottom. I was the first one to get that one. And when I did hit 10,000 subscribers, Drew gave us a case to give away, and one of you won it, and I thought that was brilliant. And I was excited for you to get it. And he has so many different action figure cases for sale, and they're not just for action figures. He has ones for vehicles, playsets, books. So go to his website, collectordisplaysuk.com, and please tell him that the Padawan sent you. TL Campbell asks, have you ever grossly overbid, and did you learn anything from it, such as techniques to discipline yourself? Great question, and something tells me that you have recently overbid. TL, you naughty, naughty person. The embarrassing answer is, hell yes, I have done that more often than I would have liked to admit. And if you watch my journey where I collect all the vintage Kenner action figures, the ones that are back there in that case, where I went from 0 figures to eventually the entire collection, it took me 2 years. And in that journey, I did learn the hard way. I used to buy first and research last. Then I started to research the eBay prices, the Facebook prices, the brick and mortar store prices, and I got a good sense of the current market. I also started buying based on condition and not the figure itself. Let me explain that. You have to really research what you're buying, and you have to know what that figure's pristine condition should be, and that really reflects on the price. You have to. And I overbid on figures, especially on eBay, where I grossly overpaid when the figure was in really poor condition, where I could have paid the same price with the same money on a loose figure that probably would have scored a 90 had I sent it in for grading. That was my bad, so the techniques are just as I said. Do your research on what a mint figure should be, not just in the figure itself, but in the accessories, and know what the current market prices are. And don't just research on eBay. You gotta go to the Facebook groups, you gotta see what individual collectors have sold their figures for and in what condition. And you have to go to the brick and mortar stores, really realizing that you're paying a premium for buying in those brick and mortar stores just because they have to make money. They're stocking them on their shelves, and they buy them sometimes in bulk lots for low, and they sell them for higher prices. It's just how it is. Even when you buy from those stores online, if they have an online store, they do the same thing. Your best bet that I think is to buy from collectors, mainly on Facebook, or in person at group meetups if you really can. Joe Show asks, what's your opinion on the Friar Tug Robin Hood figure and the Gamorrean guards? For me, he belongs in the Jabba's diorama with the Gamorrean guards. Someone has to make mead for the boys. He's also a great conversation piece. And I completely agree with you, Joe. And I think that figures like that are a huge part of the Kenner history. It's like collecting the Bigfoot from the $6 Million Man series and putting that right next to your 12-inch Chewbacca. It's toy history, and it means that you appreciate the history of the toy line. So I commend you, Joe, for thinking like that. And yeah, I do want to get a Friar Tuck to place right next to my Gamorrean guard. So that's a great question, Joe. And if any of you can name more, I have a few in mind. I don't want to name them here. I want you to name them. Leave those down in the comments. Czar Alexander asks, why didn't the US commercials have the Star Wars music in the background? It really comes down to licensing and royalties. It's cheaper to create original music for commercial than it would be to license music from popular catalog. And the commercial budgets for toy commercials at that time in the late 70s, they were so low in their production, that way they can save the marketing budget for the media buys. It's even why today that you hear Star Wars knockoff jingles for video games, for Lego commercials, and it's all about royalty payments. They did use Star Wars music in the UK ads in the late 70s, so maybe they had more money, or it just means that George Lucas and John Williams got horrible publisher deals at that time. All right, we have several questions left. Leave your questions down there in the comments, and please make sure to visit all the links in my description to support this channel. And if you want to join my Patreon community, there are amazing perks. Or if you want to keep your support on YouTube and join my membership program, there are amazing perks as well. And I thank all of you for supporting my channel. Even by subscribing and liking this video, it supports the channel a great deal. So thanks. John asks, one has to wonder, if so many figures were made, why are the prices so high? I wonder that as well. You can buy these vintage figures for prices of like $5 each for most of them, but they are going to be without the accessories. So there's one part of the answer right there. It's getting harder and harder to get figures with original accessories. Millions were made. There's millions of accessories out there, but it's harder to find them paired in today's everyday store or everyday collection. But who has them? Collectors have them, and they know the value of them, or at least in today's market. So let's take the power of the Force figures. So that line did get the least amount of figures made, but for those like the pop-up R2 with the saber that comes with them costs just as much as the figure, as I'm seeing right here. So it's all about what collectors are willing to pay for those vintage figures. And right now, in this era in time, collectors like me who are in their 40s and beyond and have a little bit of extra spending cash, at least for what the sellers are asking, that's what creates the current market. So that's where the market is right now. So who knows, in 2 or 3 generations, these might crash in price and sell for more reasonable prices, or it can go even higher because it's part of the Star Wars legacy era. I guess we'll just have to see. Jamie asks, how about Kenner making a proper hairy tauntaun? Jamie, thank you for that. That actually made me smile when I first read it. And I think that would have been super, super rad. And I think we've been cheated with the plastic Chewies and the Wampas and the plastic Tauntauns for way too long. And can we all afford Hot Toys or the toys that come, individually threaded with hair? No, we can't. I can afford to buy like one a year. So that would have been rad to have gotten a proper hairy Tauntaun back in the day. And if they did make those back in like 1980, could you imagine finding that in the wild and how bad those hairy Tauntauns would smell? Really? Clobber asks, do you think there will be a future collector market in hard to find repros? I think there's already a collector market for those figures, and now the prices are getting even higher, especially for the ones that are out of circulation. Not as high as the originals, but I think that's why those are getting higher. For collectors who can afford $700 for the original, but there's a reproduction that's out of circulation, I've seen those being sold for like $300 on eBay and other secondary marketplaces when it originally sold for like $60. So yeah, that's crazy to think that, but it's happening. And it's like the bootleg figures that came out in the mid 80s to late 80s. Those are going for crazy money right now, like the Uzes, crazy money. So to answer your question, the market is already here for them, and some collectors are going to add those to their collection just for the historical conversation and relevance that some of those reproduction figures are having in the collecting community. Sam asks, are the Slave 1 and the DVTIE Fighter backdrops playsets or vehicle accessories? That's really up to you, the collector, because there are no rules in this collecting hobby, so don't let anybody tell you any different. But I'll give you my take and how I categorize these. I don't think they're playsets, and I don't think they are vehicle accessories, since they didn't come in the original boxes, or at least the first production run boxes, and they only come in the special offer box, which was released later in the run. So to me, they're considered special inserts, and they belong to that specific box. But a lot of collectors consider them extra backdrops, where they're on the same level of the early board set or the first Cantina Adventure set, both which were made in the same type of cardboard. But again, what say you? Let me know down there in the comments. On my next Q&A, I'm going to answer this question that a lot of you have asked: how does Stan Solo get around copyrights? So that question and more are going to get answered. To learn more about these great vintage toys, click on the videos that are on your screen now. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.